Hegelian Dialectic in your business. Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. Bet you didn't know we were going to be talking about this one tonight, did you? Okay, this is a fun one. And I'm sorry my hair's all out of place. I was playing around with the kids late into the night here. Finally forgot to comb my hair before I sat down with you, but hopefully we can get past that. I wanted to talk with you about the concept of the Hegelian dialectic, and not specifically, if you've ever looked up this before, it's oftentimes used in rhetoric, but really what I'd like to talk to you about it is in the case of behavioral psychology. Okay, and that we might get a little bit deep here, but I want to give you just the absolute basics on this and kind of show you how it plays back into business, how it plays back into marketing. First, I'm going to talk about the general idea, if you haven't heard of this before. Okay, the whole concept with the Hegelian dialectic is that you start with a thesis, you start with an idea that causes a reaction. It causes people to be against it or to be shocked. The more emotional, the more shocking, the more outrageous your thesis is, the greater the antithesis is, the antithesis to the thesis. Antithesis happens. So there's a backlash. For people who understand the Hegelian dialectic, they do it on purpose, though. You create something shocking in order to get the backlash. So that the next step is synthesis, which is the greater truth, in a sense. What they say is someone comes in as a moderating force or comes back at, well, I didn't really mean that. What I really meant was this. And because if they would have come forward with this, they would have gotten a little bit of shock, but not enough to be able to move forward, or it would have been too much and they would not have been able to pass this. But because it's being passed almost as a compromise, or presented as a compromise, or presented as an idea, the energy that came from the opposite end gets flipped on itself. And this is a funny thing about emotions and how people function, is that they've basically blown everything out of proportion, and so now there's no energy left to fight it. And there's a give-in, there's a synthesis, there's an automatic acceptance to whatever's presented next. This is very weird and very deep, but you can see it throughout history. The scary thing is that people that understand how to do this, then they go to the next thesis. They go to the next outrageous thing, which causes a reaction, which then they can present a compromise that gets accepted. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis, over and over and over again. People within government understand how to do this. Politicians that have been involved for a long time, whether they know the actual concept of Hegelian dialectic, they practice it to an extent. Donald Trump was brilliant at it. I am certain he has no idea what the Hegelian dialectic is. If he's ever even heard the term, I'm certain he probably could not explain it to you. But he practices it constantly, whether he knows it intentionally or not. He practices it constantly. That's neither a promotion or a hit on Donald Trump. This is just how humans function, and people that understand how to get the other side to react before they react. If you can get the other side to react, if you can go on offense and get them to go on defense, you're automatically winning the game. It's an emotional game. It's behind the scenes. If you look at the absolute extremes within the last 100, 200 years, you've got, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Hitler doing it, or whether you talk about Stalin doing it, or Mao doing it, all the huge movements that lasted long periods of time where the most outrageous things occurred, and the populace goes along with it or turns a blind eye to it. How was Hitler able to set up ovens and march people into them to be burned alive, to be gassed and then burned, and then just outrageous, insane stuff? How does a populace go along with it? It's because he had them overreacting so often that pretty soon they have no power left. They have no energy left to react, and they give in to everything. They give in to the power, to the source of their reactions. It's a very bizarre, very dark, very sick thing when it's taken to an extreme. On the face of it, though, if you understand how to use it, it's probably about the only way you can get attention nowadays. I hate to make a transition like that, but really, on its most mild form, in order to get attention, you have to cause a bit of a stir in some way or another. I'm going to give you, these were just two books I had sitting around here. This is one I brought up recently, Winning Through Intimidation. Look at that title, Winning Through Intimidation. Okay, he talks about the concept in this book. He talks about this back and forth that occurs. And the title would, if you just read that title, and I know this was very controversial at the time when this came out in the late 70s, you would think he's encouraging you to use intimidation to win. And he used it on purpose. He had a huge backlash, such a large backlash that he ended up changing the title in the 90s or 2000s, and then it ended up switching it back because the title is so powerful. But he was trying to say the opposite. He was trying to say how you can win through the intimidation game that automatically gets paid, how you can keep from being intimidated. Well, that's the synthesis. If you get one side to react and you don't overreact to the reaction, you can then present the more subtle idea. It's all presented, if you read the book, which is a good book, it's worth reading. Another book that I just happen to have here, it's another just amazing title, Con Man or Saint? ? And this was the story of Glenn W. Turner. This came out in, I think, '69. The story of a sharecropper who turned $5,000 borrowed into $100 million in 24 months. Okay, it's a heck of a subtitle. But this con man or saint, well, doesn't that draw you in? He's either a con man or a saint. There's no in between, really. Well, really, I mean, I haven't read this book all the way through yet, but they're not saying that he's either a con man nor a saint, but they're saying that it could be presented in either way, and depending on from Hughes, it's a book that's positive about him. So it's not. They're definitely not saying he's a con man, but it's funny. They give the juxtaposition that causes a reaction, and then they give you an answer that doesn't even fit the title. Okay, this is how Hegelian dialectic works, and you see it all the time with online, especially with ads, especially with clickbait, as they say. When you have a title that entices, that gets people stirred up. I have one of my, honestly, to this day, one of the top videos I have out there is called Self-Reliance is Fake. Now, I'm not saying the concept of self-reliance is completely fake. I'm saying that how people define it or how they think about it isn't really true. And you have to be able to step back and be able to look at the big picture and realize what self-reliance is and what it isn't. But that's the thesis. And I have a whole lot. You could just go and read the comments. Whole lot of antithesis on that video over on YouTube. It's been a top viewed thing on YouTube for at least as far as my channel goes. I don't get a whole lot of views on YouTube. And then the synthesis is me explaining throughout the video what I mean by self-reliance is fake, because I'm a big promoter of self-reliance. I'm not really saying that self-reliance isn't real. I'm saying that the idea is. So play on words. You have to intrigue. You have to entice. You have to do that to be able to get people to pay attention so you could stand out. If you want 9 other ways to stand out, go check out my book, 9 Ways to Amazon Proof Your Business. You can get a free copy at amazonproofbook.com. You have a great night. We'll be back here tomorrow. In the meantime, get out there and let the magic happen.